At 7 p.m., we'll call to order the regular April 19th meeting of the Economic Development Corporation. Citizens to be heard?
No, Mr. President.
No citizens to be heard. The consent agenda consists of items 3 and 4, approval of the minutes from the last meeting, and approval of the EDC fiscal year-end FYE 2019 revenues and expenditures, balance sheet, and encumbrance reports dated April 12th. Does anyone have any comments on any of those? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Bill,
Second.
second by Stevie. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item 5, or 4, excuse me, not 5, is discussion and action on the EDC FYE 2019 Strategic Work Plan, authorizing the Executive Director to transmit said plan to the City Council for final review and approval. Could I have a motion to discuss, please?
Motion to discuss.
A second.
Moved and seconded. You want to give a little background on this, Rick, or just?
What was in the packet is sufficient for my purposes. I
Okay.
can if you would like.
We submitted this to the last council meeting, and the mayor pointed out that we did not have a formal motion to transmit it to the council. It was seconded and voted on by the board, and he had a concern with priority one of the statements in the first statement on it.
Mr. President, I believe the objection was the fact that we did not vote on it to approve it
That's what I
before we
said.
voted on, I'm sorry.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
And the first statement stated that had the words pre-development conference in there. We were talking about communicating incentives during, so we changed that, or Rick changed it to on an as-needed basis. Project 1, first bullet point under Project 1 on page 4. On an as-needed basis only, communicate available incentives during business meetings, trade shows, etc. Just clarified the statement basically, and that's the only change we've made to the work plan that we passed at the last meeting. I'd like to get discussion. If anybody in the group has any discussion, Patrick, we'll go around the room.
I don't.
Kathy?
Is that needed? Is that bullet needed? It's kind of vague. Vague. On an as-needed basis only?
Well, this is just trying to put down on paper ideas that we talked about. We had a slightly different statement in here. I don't know that it's needed or not, really.
It just sounds like it's vague and it doesn't really mean anything. I mean,
I think the mayor's, pardon me, I think the mayor's objection, though, that it was priority 1, goal 1, my interpretation of the council meeting was that it needed to be moved down further into the priorities.
not as one, not as
Not
priority
as
one.
one, no.
Okay.
Well, there's no particular orderly way these,
So like
Goals are
priority
put in here.
3 could be number 1,
Yeah.
because that's really our job,
That was my thought.
But just flip them.
correct? Yeah, flip them.
The one.
Or we could say we could address it if the new company wanting to come into Helotes requested some sort of concession or rebate rather than as needed.
okay, Stevie?
Well, actually, I agree. I think the verbiage itself needs to be changed so that it's not as vague and is also moved down,
What was the first thing you said?
that it's not as vague, the verbiage.
The
and that-
bullet.
And
pretty
that it
vague.
needs to be moved down.
Okay. Bill?
I have no comment.
Matt?
Even if you, on that first bullet, you could just start with communicate available incentives during business meetings, trade shows, et cetera, on an as-needed basis. Not only. I'd throw out only, and I'd split that sentence around.
Now, I understand only was a major point with
Was it?
council.
But when you say on an as-needed basis, that's already saying only. You know? That's, you're saying the same thing twice, in my head.
Okay, let's get back. Matt, did you have any comments on it?
So I don't know if this is going to be semantics or not, but if there's available incentives that are existing, and we're going to put in our strategic work plan here that we're going to effectively, if I look at the logic behind the statement, on an as-needed basis only, this looks more like a negotiating point, that we're not going to say, hey, this is something perhaps you can look in a city ordinance, charter, et cetera, and we're only going to put that on the table when we feel it's necessary. So I'm struggling to find why it would be appropriate to put that in the strategic work plan as it's written here, as an ad-needed basis. That's sort of, in my opinion, intuitive, that if somebody's coming to do business with the city of Helotes, that we have all our cards on the table, because the assumption is they're bringing us business and they're looking for a good deal. So I don't know necessarily that this is good, transparent business work. It's not something I would do. So I'd like some clarification on the intent of what this means, because this is direction to staff, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So, you know.
But the second bullet says utilize existing and future incentive opportunities such as, so that first bullet's really not needed at all. So why was that only a hot topic?
Bill?
My question here is under bullet 2 of those 5 opportunities, Rick, do we ever have any other? Do you know of any other abatements that we've given or any other
I mean, those 5 incentives
that would cover them all?
typically covers 99% of things that the EDC could offer.
I would say just do away with bullet number 1.
I agree.
Okay, now, that we'll have to have as a motion to amend this prior to passing it, and is there enough support to want to move it down to a lower bullet point instead of priority 1? It's really irrelevant where it shows up in the priorities.
I think the question is, does it need to show up at all?
Just do away with priority 1?
No.
I'm talking about the whole priority 1.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Okay, if that's consensus, then could we have a motion to that effect to amend the work plan?
Priority number 1, eliminating the first bullet.
Okay.
Under
which is-
projects.
Under projects, which is
project,
on an as-needed basis, communicate available incentives during business meetings, trade shows, et cetera. We have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, it passes 5-1.
Took care of that.
In that case, if we have no further discussion, we need to have a motion to direct Rick to present the work plan to the city, as amended, to the city council.
Chair, if I may, I think the motion should be to approve the plan as amended and forward the same to City Council for review and approval. I would add in the additional approval.
Well, I was gonna take a vote on it.
Well, I think the motion should say to approve the plan as amended.
Approve the plan as amended, and Rick forward it to, or take it to city council for approval. Okay, do we have a second to that?
Second.
Who was the motion?
Who was the first?
Who made the motion? I think you made the motion. You can't second it.
Well, I know I didn't make the motion. Yeah, okay, we voted on eliminating bullet
Okay.
one. That was all we did.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
There's a motion.
Mo-
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Can you clarify the motion that's on the floor, just so I have it on the record?
The motion is to approve the work plan as amended and have you forward it to city council for approval.
And state one more time, as you would, Mr. President, what is being deleted or what is being moved.
Priority one, item one is being, projects, under projects, first bullet point is being removed.
Okay.
On an unneeded basis only, communicate available incentives during business meetings, trade shows, et cetera. The rest of the plan remains intact as written. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item 6 is discussion and action on the Old Town Helotes pedestrian bridge project, appropriating capital monies for the manufacture of the bridge and generally the construction of the bridge abutments, bridge installation, and sidewalk connectivity. Could I have a motion to discuss, please?
Motion to discuss.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. And let staff present this. There's quite a bit of data included with this item.
Thank you.
Rick, could you speak up a little bit more?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sorry. This chair that I'm sitting in has a habit of sinking, as do apparently all the other chairs that are in City Hall. So thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item, Chair. Just walking through this item, the conditional letter of map revision that was issued by FEMA in March, mid-March of 2019, basically allows us to continue with the construction of the bridge. We, as you recall, went out for bids on this item in 2017. The bid price for the pedestrian bridge is remaining the same, albeit it's shrinking in length. The bid price is the same at $141,060, and that was awarded to Wheeler Lumber in 2017. The bid price for the bridge abutments, the bridge installation, and sidewalk connections, we allowed them to come back with a revised bid, seeing as how it's been approximately two-plus years, and that increased approximately $5,000. So the bid price went to $151,278, and that was awarded to Hill Country Bridge. The $151,278 does not include sidewalk connections on either side of the bridge, but rather takes them down into the document as a unit pricing factor. And the reason they did that is because they wanted to look at how the bridge was actually sitting to better determine what the bid price or the price should be for the sidewalk connections and the handrails if needed on both sides of the bridge. They also originally had included removing the existing concrete riprap. Concrete riprap, if you're not aware, is basically on the sides of the bridge. You see the concrete that sort of stabilizes the hill or the area that's on either side of the bridge from erosion. That was not included, and so they're pricing that repair at a unit price because they just want to be sure that they're giving us the most accurate price they possibly can. So without those two, again, the price is approximately $151,000. The pedestrian bridge and abutment construction documents have been approved by the city and LNV Engineering. Wheeler Lumber, who is the bridge manufacturer, is finalizing the shop drawings. And upon completion and approval by the city, we'll start the bridge manufacturing. The lead time for that bridge manufacturing and delivery is approximately 10 to 12 weeks. I received an email from Wheeler today stating that they're looking for a end of June, beginning of July timeframe for actual delivery. Hill Country Bridge would like to start construction by the end of April, and I put in the document there's a potential utility conflict. Our engineers don't believe there's a utility conflict, but the bridge the bridge installer believes there is a utility conflict. And so in order to avert an issue in the field, we need to basically what they call pothole or uncover any potential utilities that exist around where the piers for the abutment are going to be. And that cost is included in the backup materials. So under the financial section, right now the EDC has about $282,000 left in capital monies. The Wheeler Lumber purchase order is $141,000. The Hill Country Bridge purchase order is $141,000 and $151,000, I'm sorry. The remaining balance owed to LNV Engineering, and that is on the work for the Clomar. They just haven't billed the full amount yet, is $42,15. The subsurface utility engineering or potholing, we originally included an estimate of $10,000. I can tell you that I did receive, and we did approve it was $16,000 instead of $10,000. The reason for the increase, or for what would be actually a pretty high cost for potholing, is because they're proposing where you have a center pier to actually create an X that centers on that center pier, and they would do potholing on either side in an X fashion, and they're trying to make sure that there's just no utilities that are in conflict, and by doing it in X, they think that they're gonna get more surface area or area around that pier, and they'll be 100% certain that there is or is not something that's gonna conflict. So that comes out to about $4,000 a hole, which would be $16,000. We did add in here a 20% contingency, and again, that's because we have to repair concrete riprap. We need to make sure that we have enough money for the sidewalk connections, and we have to make sure we have enough money to install the handrails to make it a functional product for the public. And lastly, as I've said many times, we do need to do a LOMAR, which is a letter of map revision after the construction of the bridge is totally complete, so that we can submit that to FEMA and they can revise their floodplain as necessary. That is an absolute requirement. We can't get around that. So what we are looking at, we did include within your plans or within your packets the FEMA material, the pedestrian bridge and abutment construction documents as well. And what staff is looking for tonight is approval of the bridge project and the whole packet really, or the whole project as presented, and allowing us to appropriate capital monies for the manufacture of the bridge and generally the construction of bridge abutments, bridge installation, and sidewalk connectivity. You'll see under item number 7, so in item number 6, you're essentially approving the project and saying, yes, we recognize that we need to move monies from our general fund over to the capital account to fund this project in full. And item number 7 is to do an actual budget adjustment to take money from the general fund for the EDC and move it to the capital fund so we can make all of the expenditures out of the capital fund. Are there any questions?
Go around the room. Patrick? Kathy?
Do we think 30,000 is going to cover the sidewalk, handrails, connections?
We originally had a bid for sidewalks and handrails of $15,000. That was, remember, the bridge was much longer originally, and so there was less sidewalks that needed to be constructed and handrails because it was already closer to the existing sidewalks are down there. I think it's enough. I think 20% is enough, but I couldn't tell you with 100% certainty, ma'am.
Okay. Do we have enough money to?
In the future, you would have enough money in the general fund in order to cover that cost in the capital account. Hopefully, we don't get to that point where we need to bring it back, but we would if we needed to.
Okay.
Alan?
I have a concern on Hill Country Bridge's quotation to us. It seems to me that some of the contingency items on it are quantifiable, and I don't know why they're here under contingencies, like remove concrete sidewalks. To me, that's finite. I went and looked at it, and I don't know why there is a question as to the square footage or lineal footage. Same thing with the curbs. The curbs are there. We know how long they are. Pretty simple as to how a curb is built. Remove limestone blocks. You can see them there. Remove concrete riprap. Same thing there. The rest of them, I can see why they would be contingency items, but those first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items look to me to be quantifiable. I don't know why they're contingency.
Okay. The remove existing concrete sidewalks, again, we don't anticipate removing any concrete sidewalks, but rather adding additional concrete sidewalks. But depending on how the bridge lays out and how the actual bridge sets, I think that's why they included this, because they didn't want to have to come back with an additional bid price. They wanted it all-inclusive. We don't anticipate removing concrete sidewalks, but they added it in here as a square foot cost. Removing the existing concrete curbs, there are no concrete curbs, to my knowledge, out there that we would be removing. Really, we're removing and relaying limestone blocks. It's anticipated that, again, depending on how this works out in the field and depending how we can, in order to accommodate ADA compliance, we don't let me put it this way. We don't have engineered drawings for the sidewalk connectivity, the handrails, the embankments that possibly need to be created out there. And because we don't have engineered drawings and we're going to lay it out in the field with our Public Works Department and other city representatives out in the field to make sure that it gets around everything and that everything's copacetic, that is why they don't feel comfortable giving us a full lump sum cost, because they don't know what it is the city is going to want when the bridge and the abutments get placed in the field.
It's a ROM estimate. It's a rough order of magnitude estimate.
Yes.
Is the $30,000, $30,256, is that a maximum, or could it go over that amount?
I'm sure it's going to go over.
Could go over.
It's
So
possible.
that's-
Which price are you referring to?
The 30,000,
The 30,000.
The contingency fund,
Yeah, the 30,256, again, that's a contingency line item. It could go up. We hope it goes down, but it could go up, and if it did, we would have to come back to y'all.
seems to me we're approving then an open-ended quote or contract with them. We don't know at this point in time what
That's
the
right.
contingencies are. And, you know, in my 40 years of construction history, they often do go over, and without someone watching over the project, and I assume Public Works would be doing that, but to make sure the quantities are correct, it just still seems to me to be open-ended, and that concerns me.
I understand the concern. I don't, without doing an engineered set of plans, which is going to be an additional cost, it's going to be very difficult to not have this contingency cost in there.
Am I correct in Public Works would be the one to determine quantities?
Public Works and city representatives would be out there laying the sidewalk out in as minimal quantity as possible so that we can comply with ADA and make the appropriate connections to the existing sidewalks that are out there. We also have to go around, there's a U.S. Geological Service monitoring station out there that we cannot remove. That's that big green box that everybody sees by the bridge that nobody knows what it is. That is something that we have to take into consideration when we're connecting to that existing sidewalk on that side. The other thing that we're looking at is we're likely going to have to lose one parking space close to that green box. Again, sir, without incurring additional engineering costs, this is the most,
Closest.
this is the closest and the most consolidated or full estimate that I can give you at this time.
The number can go down though, right?
Well, I hope the number does go down. Originally, I had 15% in there. And the question came up, do you think 15% is enough? I said, well, we'll bump it up to 20 just so that we have a little wiggle room in there And so we don't have to go back before the board. Not because I don't want to go before the board, but just because when we're in the field making these decisions, you having worked in construction for so long knows that certain things have to be made in the field. And so we wanted to be able to have a little bit of flexibility there. But I cannot with 100% certainty tell you that I won't be back.
I think we'll have pretty good coverage on it, Alan. Our Public Works Director has pretty extensive construction background, as does the mayor, and I'm sure they'll both be out there watching the project and working with the contractors on it to make sure it's done correctly.
There's a level of comfort for me then.
Yeah.
Stevie?
Well, I'm just so excited to see not only this pedestrian bridge will increase the traffic on both sides of the creek for our business owners, but I'll be so grateful to see those little ladies with their strollers not in the middle of the street.
Bill? Matt?
So I apologize if this has been discussed before. So the one question I do have is, once this project is complete and paid for, who's on tap for maintenance? EDC or the city?
The city would be on tap for maintenance.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think,
That is unless the EDC wants to volunteer for maintenance on it.
No, thank you.
I move to approve the Old Town Helotes pedestrian bridge project and appropriating capital monies for the manufacture of the bridge and generally the construction of bridge abutments, bridge installation, and sidewalk connectivity.
second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 7 is a continuation of item 6, actually, discussion of and action on FYE 2019 budget amendment transferring funds from the EDC General Operating Fund to the City EDC Capital Fund for Old Town Helotes Pedestrian Bridge Project. We have a motion to discuss, please.
I motion to discuss.
Second.
No.
Moved and seconded. Rick, do we have any further discussion on that?
Only further discussion is because of the potholing changing from 10,000 to 16,000, the appropriate amount to allocate or to transfer would be $77,120, because it went up 6,000 for the potholing. And so that dollar amount would need to be included in the approving motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Patrick?
Nothing.
I'm good.
Good?
Good.
Good. Bill? Matt?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just a point of order. So we called the motion, we called the question, we did the motions, but we never voted on it, so I don't,
We haven't voted on it.
We haven't voted on it. We're just
For the
going around
discussion?
for final discussion.
okay.
We don't have a motion on the table yet. We just had a motion to discuss.
Okay, I might have missed something.
So then we need a motion. Well, I don't see a.
What is
okay,
that
the
revised?
Suggested motions on page 7.
What is that revised amount?
$77,120.
77,000.
Including the potholing.
Yes, ma'am. Or yes, sir, sorry.
Motion to approve an FYE 2019 budget amendment transferring $77,120 from the EDC General Operating Fund to the City EDC Capital Fund for the Old Town Helotes Pedestrian Bridge Project.
And I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So we will finally get started on the pedestrian bridge to get Old Town connected.
Yay.
Okay, next item is
Monument.
7:30. We're pretty well on time. Item 8 is discussion and action on design installation of gateway monuments and city pride signage on State Highway 16, Hausman, and FM 1560, including but not limited to authorizing the executive director to solicit proposals from sign contractors for the design and construction of said signage within TxDOT right-of-ways. Could we have a motion to discuss, please?
Motion to discuss?
I second.
Seconded. There's been some other concerns come up on this since we put it on the agenda. Just as a point of clarification, the only reason this was brought up to start with the city pride signs was as a stopgap measure to have signs in lieu of getting the monument signs in. We don't know how long TxDOT is going to delay this approval on it, if they ever approve it. And as we got into it and started looking at what TxDOT requires, the cost of it would be $3,000 to $4,000 per sign, which I don't know if we want to spend that on a temporary basis before we get the monument signs. Let's see, do you have any further input on it, Rick or Glenn?
No, I mean, I think that if it is indeed, I know that Glenn, you got the estimates for the 3,000 or the 4,000. So if those indeed are going to be the cost, I would think it'd be much more beneficial for us to pursue the actual monument sign in whatever form that takes. I did present, the board, if you recall, asked me to present the city pride signage document or application, or to complete that application. I did. The mayor is the signatory on that, and he brought up some concerns with regard to the cost and the look, particularly, and this is a valid point, having a city put these types of signs up, but the city also telling other business owners that they can't put those types of signs up. So that was one of the concerns that he had as well, amongst others. But his memo was included on the dais and also emailed to y'all at the time I received it. So if it indeed is going to cost us $4,000 a sign, personally, I would rather spend the money on getting the design done the way we want it done, and presenting that to TxDOT as a complete package at that point. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. Patrick?
Nothing.
Kathy?
I wasn't aware of a city pride signage. I just knew of the Gateway Monument.
That was last meeting.
Sorry.
and
Yeah. That would be why.
The whole purpose of it was to
Okay.
present a stopgap alternative out there to start with.
All right.
It wasn't meant to be a permanent fix to or solution for having signage.
What's the usual time for TxDOT to come back? Do we have an estimate?
On what?
The monument, the approval of it?
Here.
We'll discuss that after we finish this.
Okay.
Rather proceed with that.
This is just proposals. We're just looking for proposals right now.
Right.
Well, what my intention on this was to actually hire a sign contractor and have them start working on a design that then would go back to the EDC for review. And again, this would have to be reviewed and approved by y'all, since y'all, well, that's another discussion item, who's paying for it. It would have to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission for a recommendation, and it would have to be approved by City Council, just like any other sign in the city would have to do. So what I'm looking for is actually authorization to allow me to solicit some proposals from notable sign contractors in the Bear County area, and have them start the process of doing the design, have that brought back before the EDC to go through that design review process. And then once all of that's completed, TxDOT much prefers to have something concrete to look at rather than sort of pie-in-the-sky stuff. And so I think us going through that process and getting the appropriate approvals by y'all, P&Z, and City Council would help us spur TxDOT along in their review and approval process, if that makes sense.
At the present time, we're just talking about the one monument sign now, the one just north of 1604.
All monument signs.
Okay,
What we had originally talked about was doing city pride signs on all 4 locations.
got it.
The mayor did include in his memo that in his mind, having the one on Bandera Road as you enter off of 1604 would be sufficient, but that's, I'm assuming, up for discussion.
Okay.
Well, we're not to the point of, let's get through the city pride sign, and then we'll start talking about the monuments. We need to give Rick some guidance on that, on what we want to do for that. So I need y'all's input on it.
So we're not discussing monument signs now.
Not yet. We're just going through the city pride sign.
Got it? 4 of them.
Right, or city pride signs generally, whether to do them or not. Stevie?
Well, I would much rather see the signs conform with our sign ordinances in the monument type signs.
Bill?
I agree with Rick's,
Yeah.
desires to form the motion.
No, same.
Okay, that is, well, we'll have to vote on all this when we get through discussing it, but basically, the city pride signs are off the table, from what everybody's saying.
Correct.
And I would agree with that. I don't like the concept of them for a permanent sign either. Now, do we need to give staff some direction on what type of monument signs to go out for bid for? Do we want to spend a lot of money like we did on Old Town with the big fancy curly Q bases and put signs on that, or just put a nice looking stone monument with the city of Wausau?
Let them,
Here later.
Patrick,
What you suggested, the stone?
The latter,
ladder, just a
Monument
stone
sign.
monument.
a monument base, a rock monument base with a sign on it, rather than getting something very ornate and intricate, just a
Would be-
basic sign.
Are we talking about getting 4 of them?
Well, we have to discuss that too.
Well, I'm much more inclined to let Rick do the researching and bring
But all
ideas
we're
back
doing
to
is giving him direction on what to research. We don't,
monument
nobody so
signs.
far is wanting to do a big ornate monument like we have on the entrances to Old Town.
Right. Well, I'm not either.
Okay. Bill?
I suggest that Rick get the ideas from his professional sign makers as to what they would suggest, and we'll get several different options. We'll get the small, large, and the different. And then from a general broad view of what they recommend, we could at least pin it down and then come back with a motion to go that way or the other way.
Well, we're not gonna make him motion to go that way. We're just gonna give him
I'm just
direction.
saying on how to approach getting the
Right.
signs. That's what we were talking about, right?
Right,
Just what he wants, give him some kind of direction.
right.
Just leave it open and let him come back to us with proposed designs.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm along those same lines here, because I'd much prefer to see an exhibit done by a graphic artist, showing the placement, and then having us decide on, the design based on where, based on your experience, they can do that. They can superimpose their image over, on X, Y, and whatever grid we give them, coordinates, right?
Yeah, they can make
Okay.
it look like it's already there.
Yeah, so I think that would give us.
They'll do a plan.
Yeah, in terms of an exhibit to actually, vote on a choice, because that placement and design is gonna matter. And so we can conceptualize whatever we want right now, but, when they design it, it's gonna,
I want to be clear that I'm not asking for me to make the approval on a monument and spend the money and put it in place. I'm only asking for the authority to go ahead with sign contractors. It sounds like that conform with the monument sign guidelines that are in Chapter 66, the sign code, and come back with a rendition from a selected contractor that has a good history, that's a reputable contractor, and then bring that back and we can start the design discussion at that point and move forward. That's all I'm asking for, not to build it yet.
so we're jumping ahead.
I think you're jumping ahead. I just
Okay.
want to find a contractor and contract with them on just a design basis at this point, and say, we'd like to have you to design the sign. We can bring that back to y'all for discussion, and then it can get sent through the process, through P and Z and City Council, and then at that point, we'll let that contractor build the sign once TxDOT approves it. But right now, I just want y'all to give me the authority to find a company and to have it initially designed.
Do you anticipate any questions or concerns by TxDOT about blocking of any vision if we put a monument sign at ground level?
I'm sure TxDOT will have concerns or comments on that. Yes, I don't know what those will be. I know that there are contractors in Bear County that have done this type of work before in TxDOT right-of-way, and so we would be looking at them.
Those sign contractors are going to know what TxDOT is.
That's true.
I mean,
So
they
you're
work
just
with
gonna-
TxDOT all day long. They should be able to come back with some idea of what they recommended as a design. That's all we're after.
Yeah.
They probably
from
know what
there.
the limitations are and what the requirements are, I'm sure.
If
some
they don't,
cases.
if they don't, we'll find a contractor that does.
True.
Can we have more than one to look at?
Yeah, I'm not saying that we would only bring back one. I'm sure that we will have several iterations to bring back to y'all, and then y'all can make amendments from there.
Okay.
So basically, what I'm hearing is we want to authorize Rick to go ahead and solicit proposals for signs from contractors designing,
Yes.
or the design and construction monument-type signage within the city of Helotes. Do we want to include that to fall within the parameters of the city of Helotes' sign ordinance?
I do.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
I motion it.
Sure.
A
Okay.
second?
Motion is to authorize the executive director to solicit proposals from sign contractors for the design and construction monument-type signages within the TxDOT right-of-way, signs to comply with the city of Helotes sign ordinance. You have a second?
I did.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I guess, have a motion to discuss the extension of water water utility service in lieu of annexation for Mega Systems Inc., a stage and architectural lighting manufacturer that seek to expand operations within the city of Helotes extraterritorial jurisdiction. I believe we have some representatives from the company here tonight, if you would like to
Yes, sir, let's get the motion and second to discuss.
have a motion to discuss that. Yes, we need
I
a
motion.
No second.
second, moved and seconded.
Can I would like to add,
Yeah, go
have
ahead.
one comment before we get into this. I want to make sure that that we manage expectations here, not only for the board, but also for the individuals that are seeking the incentive. We purposely put this on the agenda as a discussion and a direction item. We anticipate not having any approvals or anything at this point. There's a lot of questions that y'all are likely going to have that we don't have answers to yet. And we ourselves have questions that we need to work through with these guys. But what we want to know is whether y'all have the desire to go forward with that process in incentivizing that type of thing or not. If you don't, it's a waste of time for us to pursue it, and of course, it's a waste of time for them to do anything. They can proceed with whatever options they have. And so I just want to manage expectations. We're not asking for approval. If y'all say, no, we don't want to do it, that's direction enough for us, and we'll go elsewhere. But that's where we are at this point. We did include within the background materials some information on what they're seeking, a little bit of information about them, how much the cost of the utility expansion would be. It's an opinion of probable cost, which means it'll likely go up a little bit, or it may go down. But that's where we are. So with that, I'll let y'all have the floor.
Would you like to hear from?
Oh, would y'all like to address the commission or corporation and give us some information about your company?
Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Guillermo Cavada. I am the CEO of Mega Systems, Inc. Mega stands for Miguel, Elio, Guillermo, and Arturo, 4 brothers. We are a 3-generation company. Our parents work with us, and my kids work with us. So kind of really symbolic of a true family business. We started in California, and then in looking for a more tax-friendly work environment, we found San Antonio, Texas. I moved to Helotes. I am a resident of Helotes, And so are my brothers. We all live, including our parents, and we ended up bringing about 6 other families with us when we moved out here. So apologize for that growth in the last 10 years, but a lot of it was us. We purchased, we were on the 410 and 16 in Bandera, and 410 and Bandera Road in Leon Valley / San Antonio, really congested, really crazy. We found this property out here, which used to be an old gym, and we bought it. And our company is an LED-based company. We manufacture LED products. This is our smallest unit, just to give you an idea of what we do. So this is our little light, and we've been doing LED lights for the last 20 years. We were one of the first ones to pioneer. Now they're all over your desk and everywhere else. So we, fortunately, in our economy, we're growing. We're growing a lot, and I think in the proposal there's our existing building and what we want to do to continue to grow. We aren't builders, and we're not a construction company. We don't do a lot of that. We do basically LED video walls, LED products. When we're realizing we're growing because we got Topgolf's contracts and we're getting all these new contracts, we're running out of space. So we need to grow. Frost Bank, which is our bank, has supported us with financing for this expansion. But when we took it up to get permits and getting the construction done, we ran into a hiccup that we don't have any water. So we're required to put a water tower with a pumping station. It averages out to about $150,000, depending on what we do and how we do it. Seems a little bit off short for us, $150,000. I can probably get another building elsewhere. That's kind of our conundrum. What do we do? Do we wait and see what we do with you guys? And I think that's where I approached Glenn and Rick about our dilemma at this point. And we don't know what the city's doing. We don't know what the city plans are. We do know that in the last 10 years, it's grown tremendously, and it seems like it's going to continue to grow. So in getting water to us, I assume there's going to be plans to get water to other people, moving forward. We're right next to the golf course, just so you guys get a situation of where we're at, and it seems like the golf course is up for sale too, from what I understand. In order to get a good tenant in there or some kind of, you're going to have to get water in there eventually, at least for the fire part of it. And that's where we're at with our situation. If there's any questions to me.
I need to think about this.
Well, that's why it's just discussion.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
looking for any action.
I have no questions.
Alan? Steve?
I need to think about it, too.
Bill?
I have no questions.
Matt?
Come on, Matt, you can do it.
Questions for you or questions for
Questions in
staff?
general, yeah.
Mr. President, questions for Guillermo or questions for staff? What do we,
Well, I think we need to get some direction from staff on what is out there that could be put on the table as incentive, what options we would have. And the only question I had for you is what percentage of your sales, if any, are subject to sales tax?
Not a large percentage. We are a wholesale manufacturer, so most of our sales are not the last point of sale. We do some of it, and it was significant. I gave those numbers to Glenn. I don't know them off the top of my head, but they were not that large. We don't have any intentions in the near future either to go direct sales or collect a lot of taxes, since that's normally done by the final party who we sell to. We are involved in some very large projects right now, and we're going to continue to grow, so we just have to kind of figure out what we do. We like where we live. Well, we love Helotes. We participate as much as we can. We want to see it continue to grow within reason, but we're kind of we're at a stopgap. In order for us to do that, we either have to determine if we put in a tower or a pumping station to be able to do the fire. Now, we didn't know these requirements. I guess it's kind of new moving forward. I think even the fire station had to move because of pumping stations or things like that, so I guess it's affecting all of us. My thing with Glenn and Rick, I just don't know what you guys are doing, if maybe in the next couple of years there will be a water pipe, and we just went ahead and spent $100 and something thousand on something that we didn't need to spend. So it's more about what the future holds for us, so.
well, it's like I discussed with you. I mean, the city has no, and the EDC right now has no plans to expand water infrastructure in that area. We just got done with the water and sewer between Cedar Trail and Scenic Loop, so there's been no discussions on that. So the time frame on that, I would think, would be far further into the future than you would want to wait around for. Did you have anything? I see there's a lot of questions, and so so basically, one of the things that you have to remember in EDC is chartered by the state to do is to increase and expand primary jobs in the area of your jurisdiction. This certainly would at least sustain jobs or grow future primary jobs in the area, particularly if it was annexed, and that would have to be a part of this conversation, I would think, before we would spend money on something we would never have in our city. So it meets the most critical component, I think, of what an EDC is created to do by state law. The issues with this project, and I've already discussed them with you, are that I knew the question, is it a sales tax producing business? It produces, I think last year you said you sent to the state $31,000 in sales tax. So there would be some sales tax collected, but the city and the EDC would not see a return on the $168,000 for a period of time. The other thing that you're looking at is property tax. Of course, the EDC doesn't collect property tax, the city would. The property tax collections for the city would be several $1,000s because it's one of the smallest components of the entire property tax bill. So adding that in, it would still, the window of horizon here would be extended, okay, on repayment. And lastly, the personal property that they would hold, since they're a manufacturer, they're also, or should be taxed on personal property within the facility. That would be additional tax that could go back to the city. It wouldn't go back to the EDC, but it could go back to the city. And that would, again, add an additional money to the pot that may or may not make it palatable for the EDC and city council. One of the other things and there's some questions that staff has on the personal property tax and the real property tax that have been collected and remitted to the county. We have some questions on that, and I don't think we need to go through that here. But the last thing would be another incentive that could be on the table here is the Freeport exemption. So when personal property is stored on the site and they're taxed on it, right, a city can opt to provide a Freeport exemption so that they would not be taxed on the city's portion of the personal property that they have on their site. And that is something that would potentially, could be a payback to the developer in the future. Again, it would take a long time to reach that $168,000 figure, but it's something that I think that the city and the EDC could pursue. But again, the purpose of this is, do y'all want to be in the business of extending utilities for this type of operation or not? And that's, if you want to think about it, we certainly understand that. But I think, what is the window here? What's your time frame?
Well, we've been talking about it for several years. We finally got plans and for submittal and everything. That's where we were at, where it all came to a standstill. We really wanted to break ground before the summer, so we're in a hold pattern right now. We got to make some decisions if we go ahead and make the investment. And again, a lot of what I spoke to both of you was more about us not knowing what your plans are, and we just don't want to go ahead and make this big expense. And next thing you know, there's a water pipe being dug out in front of us. Again, it's the non-knowing factor. And we got to make decisions. Do we move elsewhere? Do we expand? Do we do a remote office? Within the stuff that I showed you, we are growing. We're acquiring another company from China. So we're going to bring in that manufacturing into the U.S. So, for several reasons, but so that might add some more. Again, our goal is not to be a direct sales, so I don't think any sales tax will ever be collected. But right now, we're on a hold pattern when it comes to moving forward. We've looked at other properties, even the one across the street. We've even considered, but I think in the long term, in that general area, we're going to have the same issue, more or less.
So if I may, Chair, I think the issue that we're looking at is whether We know that the sales tax is not going to be enough to ever recoup the investment that the EDC would have to contribute to get this line across. Are there other factors that make the EDC and the city council palatable to this idea, i.e. increase in primary jobs, that kind of stuff? So that's what we need to hear from y'all.
Question.
Bill?
In relationship to his location and being in the ETJ, what is the discussion with the city on obtaining the property around him, or what is the volume of the ETJ annexation that is being talked about in the background? In other words, if we go for just the strip that's gonna pick him up, that'd be some, and just annex that, it wouldn't pay for it. But if you're gonna annex more property and run that water line out as far as here or the golf course, then you're gonna give that whole ETJ annexation more value by having a water line out there. And he would just be actually the first one on the line, but what is the potential of raising that property value if the city ran the water line out there? And what's the status of the ETJ annexation?
Okay, well, if you recall, you know that the city can't unilaterally annex anything, okay? So we have to, which is why we had the whole ETJ study done, and other things in the strategic plan talk about annexing something if it makes sense, right? And so there's always a dollar figure and pluses and minuses with that. So we can't make any plans to go out and annex a property. We have to be approached. Now, you can incentivize for annexation, which we've talked about many times, which is what we're talking about here. I'm not sure, to be frank, I don't know whether this passes the dollars and cents, common sense thing that y'all have. It may not. The property next door to y'all, by the way, this is the last property in our ETJ. So this would be.
First property coming this way.
First property, yeah, coming from Bandera Road into the city of Helotes. There's a
adjacent to.
significant portion that we annex that's just the road. So this would be the end property right at the city limits, which is just the roadway at
That's
this
as
point.
long as the water line's gonna be.
Yeah.
Well, and just a comment, we don't need the water for any other purpose except for a fire hydrant. That's the requirement.
Need it for manufacturing?
No, we don't, we mainly it's sub-assembly, so we don't need it for the process of assembly. It's all
I thought it
electronics.
was in with the manufacturing.
No, it is just for the fire permits. Basically, they won't let us build a building of the size as indicated, which is weird because it's the exact same size as a building we already have, but
And as I understand, it's, they're just asking for the water line across the street to be brought across Bandera Road. So it really would not be an extension of the water lines other than for that one purpose and that one property.
Well, that would be up for discussion. And the reason I say that is you could have an extension across the highway that was large enough not only to accommodate their fire flow requirements, but also for other people to tap onto that line and then extend onto their property.
Okay.
The biggest thing, and I think you brought this up, or at the golf course? Yeah. The golf course is for sale. Well, that golf course is a considerable size and would be perfect not only for
A developer.
well, it would be perfect for development depending upon what that cost was. The other thing that we can look at here is if we work with SAWS to do this, and I don't know the answer to this right now, this is something that's way in the weeds, but if we move if we contributed to the cost of the sewer line or the water line across the highway, whether we could force annexation on future property owners when they want to tie into that line. Many cities do that, but those cities own their own utilities. So it would be a discussion item that we would have to have with SAWS, that SAWS would prohibit somebody from tying in unless they were annexed into the city. And I don't know the answer to that at this point.
Don't developers normally pay for that?
Developers normally pay for,
Water, utilities coming into their properties?
yes.
Whether they're,
I mean, I will say, though, that the EDC just spent, well, the EDC and city just spent a lot of money on building water and sewer lines to incentivize development, so I think it goes both ways.
How is the golf course getting water right now?
Well,
They probably have a well.
there are no wells.
God.
Okay, let's all not be talking at once. We've got some basic points here to look at. The main question that would have to be answered before, in my mind, before I would even consider it, would be if we can get SAWS to agree to that. If we can't,
Then it's a moot discussion.
it's moot.
And that's fine. If that's the only way that y'all consider it, then we can approach SAWS and see
We
if
would have
that's.
the ability to extend water and get the annexation if we paid for the line across.
What is this 168,000
That's the
figure
cost.
cover?
That was the,
Across the street? I mean, get the water line across the street?
yes. And that would be because TxDOT's not gonna allow you to open cut across the highway, so it's gonna be, you're gonna have to be bored. So it's,
That's what the cost is for here.
Very
These are
expensive.
different line items, covers going underneath the highway.
that is correct. And again, that's a very preliminary estimate. It's an opinion of probable cost, which means LNV gets off the hook if it's $100,000 over. So, but that is the best estimate that we have at this point.
And the other option on incentives, we are limited on what we can do on incentives would be to take it to the city council for their considerations. They have much more options for incentives than we do. All we can do is give a cash payment, which we have never done, or give a little bit of sales tax back, and ours is minuscule. The city has the ability to incentivize in other ways.
Yes, I mean, that certainly is an option. That's an option. I would think that the EDC would be a component to that, though, since this is for economic development purposes as well. So I would think there would be some component there. Anything that y'all did would have to go as a project through the public hearing process and go to city council anyway for approval. But we can certainly have that discussion if that's required.
So I do have a question, and I appreciate the fact that you have the business here in the Lotus, but as you can hear some of the concerns here from the board, my question to you is there an amount that you'd be willing to contribute to the overall cost? Because obviously that's a concern of ours if we were to get SAW's approval. What's the amount from your end that you would be willing to put out there? Because obviously we're looking to recoup those costs, and because of the low sales tax, it would take quite some time for us to recoup that. So what's the amount there to shorten that period of time?
The direct answer would be, I don't know. We'd have to look at it, depending on our budget for the building. I'll give you an example, though. We did run fiber to our building. It cost us $30,000, and then AT&T sold it to all our neighbors. So eventually, we threatened with lawsuit if they didn't, give us back some. So they charged us for half. Just to give you an idea of what we've had to go through.
Right.
It's beautiful to be here, but it's not the easiest, at least when it comes to expansion. I'm sure other businesses that would try to move in would have the same issue. But I do not know the exact number. We haven't really looked at it. But we probably wouldn't mind contributing it. We're not asking for a free ride. Like I've told these guys, what we're asking for is, again, we don't know what you guys are doing. I just don't want to go ahead and spend all this money, and 2 months later, they're running a pipe through there. I think it's been clear that we're not doing that. But like I said, you guys have seen this city grow tremendously in the last 10 years. So it wouldn't be a phantom idea that we would have water running through there very
I'm
soon.
going to go around in a line now, everybody asking questions. Kathy,
I'd like to see what goes into the golf course first.
we have no clue.
I know. We'll see who buys it, and then a
John.
developer comes in and says we're
ask-
gonna put in 100 homes, and we've got water needing to go there,
And developers,
And
in
there's
that
a price.
case, would provide
Let's,
the
let's stay in line,
yeah, that's my suggestion.
okay? Alan,
I don't have any more.
Stevie,
I don't have any more.
Bill?
Of those incentive opportunities that we voted on earlier in the plan, of those 5 deals, can you give an estimate of about how much that's worth to him? In other words, which one of those incentives is he eligible for?
This would, because we're talking about annexation at the same time, This would be handled through the same thing that we did with the Brycewood subdivision. It would be a Chapter 380 agreement it'd be I think the correct title is Pre-Annexation and Chapter 380 Economic Development Agreement. So they would agree to be annexed. We would agree to do something for them, whatever that would be, whether it's,
Well, I'm like I said, what does EDC or the city, out of those 5 areas, can they do for him? I mean, that's all I'm asking, I don't know.
well, the EDC can do a direct cash grant.
Okay,
It can do sales tax reimbursements like we've done many times. The city council can do tax abatements, property tax abatements. They can do sales tax reimbursements as well. So, but it sounds to me like it would be a considerable period of time in order for them to recoup money through an annual reimbursement back to them. So I think what we would be talking about here realistically would be some sort of direct cash incentive in lieu of annexation, if we were able to find out from SAWS that we could force future annexations.
There's a question, is SAWS going to, that's a SAWS water line out there we're connecting to, right? SAWS going to charge the regular impact fee to them on that frontage on the property when they develop it?
Yeah, they would have to pay any and all impact fees that they would be eligible for.
If
Now-
they're tying into domestic, there's no impact fee on fire.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that is correct. I didn't think of it. So this is would be a fire line only, so there would be no impact fees on the fire line.
Strange regulations. I'm kind of,
Have we
we pretty well, do you have any other questions on it, Matt?
No, I don't.
We need more information before we're able to even make a decision on it, basically. I think.
Well, the direction that I've heard so far is to approach SAWS to see whether we can force annexation on future tenants before we engage in incentivizing this development. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
that's correct.
Okay.
Make a motion to that effect.
We don't need a motion. We've got it. So we will, for y'all, we'll approach SAWS. Dealing with SAWS, could take a considerable amount of time. They're in no hurry to get back with the answers. So I don't have.
6 months to a year. 6 months to a year.
That's optimistic.
Optimistic.
If we're lucky.
Yeah, that's not this summer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm
Thank
glad
you.
we got the bridge. I wish we would have had it when the kids were going to high school.
Yeah. Really floor
Hey, I'm tempted, if we could, if no one has any objection, to jump to item 11 now, so we can get through that discussion.
What is item 11?
It's discussion and action on EDC's affiliation with the Helotes Area Chamber of Commerce, including but not limited to the following. Do I have a motion to discuss EDC's affiliation with the Helotes Area Chamber of Commerce?
I'll motion that.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. I don't know exactly how to approach this. The mayor sent out a very pointed letter on this to all of the members of the board. And the mayor, of course, like any other citizen, can communicate with any board members his views on what we're doing and what they think we should do. But on the other hand, by law, the mayor has no oversight of this commission. The city council has oversight as far as appointing board members or removing board members for, I guess, whatever reason they choose to. We have a contract in place, which we'll go through in more detail, and the main point that was not brought out in the mayor's letter is that the landlord on that property is giving us 1,000 square feet for $800 a month. And his constraint on that was we cannot sublease. If we sublease, we pay market value, which would be what, 1,800 a month?
At least 14, yeah.
At least 1,400 a month or more. And we can go through, I'll let staff go through the details on what is involved in this, because a lot of y'all aren't familiar with it, but we're doing sponsor, in lieu of items we would be paying the chamber to participate in their functions, we're getting credit for that amounts to a little over $200 a month. And the chamber is using one 12-by-12 office in there. And they occasionally have a meeting in there, but anybody else in town that wishes to have meeting space can come in and ask and have a meeting in there too, not just the chamber. And the only direct expense we have, we're paying the utilities and everything just like we would in here. The only direct expense we have associated with them is the cost of the toner that goes in the copy machine. There have been questions on the time Glenn spends on it, but unless the council changes, the group changes their direction, we have authorized the Assistant EDC Director to facilitate and help the Chamber of Commerce. He's our representative from the EDC and I guess the city as a whole on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. And the staff, any more comments on it? We'll go around the room and let everybody have their comments on it.
Point of order, do we have a motion to discuss?
Yes, sir.
We did a motion to
Okay, sorry,
discuss.
missed it.
Alan? No, not Alan. Go ahead and start if you want to. We'll go a little different order.
I have several concerns about our affiliation with the Chamber of Commerce. Is it common for a city like Helotes to have a contractual agreement with the Chamber of Commerce to provide anything for each other?
Done a lot of different ways in different cities.
I mean, I can say then, in Bernie for sure, looking kind of in the immediate area, the city actually has a contract with their Chamber of Commerce to provide services, where the city gives that chamber money, like $30,000 to $40,000 a year. In New Braunfels, both the EDC and the chamber operate together. They have the unified executive director and kind of separate staff to perform the functions, because there's so much, in my opinion, overlap in the services.
I believe the North Chamber does also. With CASA.
Okay, we'll stay on one person at a time. And I know you've got a friend that is on the EDC in another town. My brother is on the EDC in Wharton. They fund $15,000 a year to the Chamber of Commerce to help them with their expenses. It's not uncommon at all for the city and the Chamber of Commerce to work together. We basically have the same goals.
Okay, do they provide them offices and services, copy machines, all the other things? Do other cities do that?
I can't answer that question. I don't know. But they're doing direct funding that amounts to a lot more than what that does. They're actually paying us $200 a month for service, or the trade out on sponsorships. It was equivalent of paying us $200 a month for that one 12-by-12 office.
Right.
This is up to the board, or the corporation. I don't know why we're discussing it right now. We have an ongoing agreement that goes through the end of September.
Based on the other information you sent out.
Let's stay in order. Stevie?
Obviously, Section 3 of the agreement, they are not honoring.
That is not breach of contract in any shape, form, or in a legal context.
I disagree.
They're in between employees. The employees have been gone 2 weeks, and they're in the process of hiring somebody else, and they're gonna hire a full-time person this time. That's not a breach of contract. That's totally irrelevant.
It's one person. You need time to allocate the replacement.
It doesn't constitute breach of contract.
Well, so right now, how are they staffing the office? How is the chamber staffing the office?
The chamber doesn't have current staff in the office. They had one employee that left, and now the chamber is actually, I mean, the chamber's here if you want to hear from them.
Oh, good.
I would need, y'all need to step to the podium and,
Which, one of y'all come up, introduce yourself.
Good evening, my name is Katrina Gonzalez. I'm actually on the board for the chamber. I also own a business in Helotes. I'm actually the chair for the employee committee, if you will. We met last week after we lost our employee. We're redefining the allocated hours of that employee. We're looking to hire a full-time person with more strategic initiatives behind them. So we are trying to address several problems with the new addition to the staff.
Well, do you have any idea of a time frame when you have somebody?
We would
hired?
like to have had somebody in place by May 1st, but we don't meet until the first Tuesday of May. So we have to make sure that our board approves the new job description that we just came up with last week.
So you should have someone within a couple of weeks,
Yes, that would be ideal.
2 to 3 weeks.
Yes.
Any other questions, Stevie?
Yes, yes. All right. Does the chamber provide any equipment or supplies, or are we providing them?
The chamber actually does provide quite a bit of supplies to the EDC office. I've tried to really keep it, in my opinion, equitable, because I didn't think any organization should, I don't know, get a free ride off of the EDC. So that we may have a month that we'll buy paper, and the next time we need paper, the chamber provides paper. And I think I know the treasurer's here, they can address how much they've spent in supplies this year and last year. And then I think what the EDC's supplied so far is in our background documents on item number 4, is that right? Yeah.
We actually also all office at other places, and so it's not uncommon that we would bring our own items to the meetings that we have once a month at, the collective location. So if it's just a matter of us purchasing our own ink or toner or equipment, I'm sure we have it in the budget to do that. Additionally, I think that we could probably find volunteers to staff the office in the interim time until we have a full-time employee. I know that that's a concern.
That would be great.
My office is down the street. I love using it for meetings. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. I think that it's a great asset to the city, and it's also a great, partnership for the local businesses like myself who don't have the office space to facilitate a meeting for my staff.
Understand. All right, I understand your reasoning about the sublease, but quite frankly, these in-kind contributions, that's not business. It does not allow for an accurate accounting of receipts and expenditures. And this is a business. So I feel very strongly, I agree with Susan Wooten and Mayor Schoolcraft that, that we should pay our own bills, and so should chamber. I feel very.
We have a legal opinion from the city attorney saying it is legal, Stevie.
I'm saying it's not business. It's not good business. So,
We're supposed to be working together. Why are we doing
absolutely,
that?
and we will, because we would like an accurate accounting of our expenditures and receipts.
Okay,
Can it come back to me for a second?
go on to Bill next.
The question came up, the first comment you made was that the landlord will not let us sublease it.
Right.
So now we just have an agreement to have them come in. In other words,
We have an
there's
agreement.
nothing
and
officially that it's
Not
a sublease
officially
for a
sublease.
certain dollar. They're
Right.
just coming in and getting all this stuff before coming in and using the office. Is that correct?
They use that one office for the $2,500 a year in in-kind donations for the money we would be spending to
That's
sponsor.
not counted
their
as a sublease or anything like that.
No.
Has the landlord ever been approached whether or not he could sublease it or not, or
Yes. He said if we wanted to sublease it, we could pay market rate.
with the full rate? Okay.
that was discussed before this was ever done the first time, so we came to this agreement, or we would have been charging rent.
And how much would that, the regular full rate be?
18.
Instead of 800, how much?
At least $1.50 a square
1400.
foot, which would be $14.50. Matthew?
Okay, so I'm just gonna wargame a few things here just to get it out so I can hear myself say it, and if somebody wants to sanity check me, please do so. So we're basically trying to adhere to a black and white contract because we have a lapse in employment that may or may not be legally enforceable by a contract law expert, to kick out an organization of a building that we're getting a discount on directly to the EDC. And this organization that we're willing to basically throw this out right now promotes business in Helotes. And so is that the question we're discussing right now?
That's one
It's not a
percent.
question, but
So we want to pay more in rent, say goodbye to an organization that actively recruits and supports the business community in Helotes, when technically, and I've done sponsorships for many nonprofits, and I do these for my clients, the value is accounted for because they have their own sponsorship packages. We have documentation say we're doing this in kind. And to my knowledge, the only person I've ever come in contact with in business that watches toner and copies are attorneys. And they're a fraction of the industry out there that produces taxable revenue for the city. So, I mean, I just threw that out there because I'm on the end over here and thinking about this, and that seems to me what we're even debating right now on this agenda item, that we want to say goodbye, let's go over to the other guy, we're going to have empty space, we'll keep $800 unless we want to pursue subletting this and then charge us market rate, and then EDC is now on tap to go fill that space and become basically a subletter with what, still one employee, correct?
correct.
Well, the other point that the contract does have a 60-day out clause. We could get out of it legally, but from my way of thinking, there's no legal breach of contract. The minimum we could do would be to exercise a 60-day option. Otherwise, you're on very shaky legal ground. Well, as long as you follow the 60-day option, but that's,
Okay, but yeah, there's a servability clause in here, so it's been identified that Article 3 of this contract, there's an inconsistency. So, it has a contract expert or the city attorney looked at this and said, this is still a valid contract as of right now. Because I mean, to me, that's really the only issue that I would see is a corporation, we would have liability. Can we continue to exercise this contract as written, despite the fact that, there is a clause in there that if any other provision in this, et cetera, and then, from my experience, when it comes down to contract law, it goes in front of, a judge, and then there's the reasonable person standard. So if the judge is going to look at this and they're going to say, City of Helotes, which we're going to have to pay an attorney for, right, to go represent us, they haven't had somebody as an employee since the 29th, and your recommendation from City Council is 4/19? There's no way I can find people to replace my other people within that amount of time. And it's not, you guys are all volunteers, right?
I don't think that came from council, I think that came from mayor.
but this did not go before council. It came
Okay.
from the mayor.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, but there's city letterhead. So the point I'm trying to make is the logic right now doesn't make sense to even try and get out of this and discuss it or change anything until we see if they can get somebody back in there. This is perhaps one of the most visible organizations that's trying to build business in our community, and we're trying to say, sorry, you just lost somebody, but now you're going to lose your space too. I'm not down for that in any shape or form. That does not pass my sanity check at all,
Okay, let's
as
have
it stands right now.
one more short comment from each person going around the room, and then we'll see what action we want to take.
So my question is, if the chamber was not in the space, would we still be paying the same amount? So what's the message that we're sending then?
Right.
Kathy?
I think for $4,500, we leave them there.
25.
Well,
This is the only in-kind.
it's the only end, okay,
Yeah, well, and this is,
but I'm just saying, I like them there.
Alan?
I have no questions.
Stevie?
I fully support the chamber, absolutely. However, I strongly object to these in-kind contributions where we do not have an accurate accounting.
We could leave that out.
And that's right,
That's right, easily. And they keep their space.
exactly.
Can't take it out because they can't pay us rent.
That's not the same thing.
What?
They cannot give us direct cash payment.
No,
in
that's
their
correct.
salaries.
That's correct. We'll just pay for our own.
I strongly disagree with that. Again, this is a business arrangement. And we have,
It's a legal business arrangement.
Pat, you argue with everything I say. Really don't appreciate it.
Attorney approved it.
Okay, but however, we do not allow for accurate accounting. This in kind. You know, Glenn is serving on both boards. We're paying his bills, his
Served
salary.
on this board.
Well,
He's an employee.
absolutely, and we pay his salary. Is that correct, Pat?
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you. But he serves on the board of the chamber as well. And that is a conflict of interest. Now, as I understand, council or this board allowed him to do so.
Right. He's a non-voting member, which is not a conflict. Well, that's up to the board to decide. If the board think it is, we'll do it. If they don't, the majority of the board rules.
Yes. But however, he is basically staffing both offices at this time.
For another week or two, yeah.
Pat, can I respond to that? Staff, can I respond to the staffing issue?
I don't chair this.
Just identify yourself.
Joel Lutz. I have a insurance agency in Helotes. I was on the EDC before
Yes.
this, and been here for 9 years. I also serve as a member on the chamber. I currently am answering the emails, I am answering the phone, and responding to those people. So I am filling that position currently. Not as well as an employee, obviously, because I have a full-time job and a family at home. So we will get somebody. We're working on that. But I appreciate Matt stating it can't be done overnight. We got to find the right person, and we got to get them fit in
Oh,
there.
we understand that, absolutely.
Thank you.
Leah would like to speak, Chair.
I'm Leah De La Garza Flores, and I'm on the Board of Directors for the Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to address what you were mentioning about how do we quantify value. And I am a past media director at 4 different advertising agencies in Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. And as part of our business model, we would provide in-kind pro bono services to many, many nonprofit organizations. And every year, part of my media department would have to quantify the value of the media that was provided in the different sponsorship packages that were done for each of the organizations. That was something that they required us to do. And we would look at the fair market value of anything that had their logo on it, anything, if there were any radio mentions or press releases that went out, or anything that would have your specific logo as part of that, and we would basically track it and quantify it so that you could use that dollar value for whatever you needed to. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
You through, Stevie, or you have some more comments?
I'll just let it go.
Bill?
One question I had, does the landlord agree with this agreement that's in place?
He
I mean,
knows
he has
we
seen
did,
it, and
yeah.
he agrees with that, and he's all comfortable with it. I have no questions.
Matt?
Yeah, so the only comment I have to add on to the discussion is that when this current contract comes up for renewal, we need to shore up the gaps to make sure that discussions like these don't happen again. Because this is frustrating. I want everybody to know that I can't believe we're discussing kicking out the chamber. That's it.
I'm good.
Okay, at this point, the discussion and action on the EDC's affiliation with the Helotes Area Chamber of Commerce, if we have any changes we want to make to that, I need a motion to that effect. Otherwise, the contract will stay in force as it is.
We'll be glad to take your money. You want to donate $15,000 to the chamber? We'll take it.
Can I address her point?
What?
Can I address her point?
I think we need to move on. If there's no motion on the floor, the item. You have a
One
motion?
of our
Go ahead.
directors.
No, I said,
has to
ask if
speak.
there is a motion. If you have a motion, make it. If there's no motion, then the item is finished. Everybody's had their say on it, and you have to have a motion and a second to make any changes.
Somebody motion?
There's no motions. No motions. It stays.
Yeah.
It stays. Yeah.
Matt, if you need to go,
No, we're good.
okay.
Thank you.
We'll go back to item 10, discussion and direction on the purchase of real property located near 12510 State Highway 16 for economic development purposes. This is discussion and direction, not action. Do we have a motion to discuss?
A motion to discuss?
Second.
Moved and seconded to discuss the purchase of real property. I'll let staff present this. They're more familiar with it, and it's a new concept we haven't done before.
How do you want to do it? Said, how do you want to do it?
I'm sorry, where are we?
Yo,
Section 10.
discussion on it.
Item 10.
Acquiring property.
You can go ahead and start.
Okay. There, I guess the city staff and EDC was approached by a local property owner who was also a developer here in Helotes. He did a strip center, 20,000 square foot with the KFC and the wash tub. His primary business is doing retail strip centers. Obviously, when he developed the site, he only developed the front few acres and left the back 6.7 undeveloped. He's been trying to get interest in that property. It's not his area of expertise, and is now, he's had it on the market since that property was developed, so it's a couple of years with little interest. He's also currently doing 6 other projects in Bear County, and he was quite frank with me and said he just needs to free up his books and kind of move on. So he's looking to liquidate. I think it provided in the packet was the marketing flyer for the site, Bandera Road site. I mentioned 6.7 acres. It's in our B3 overlay district. It would be considered a flag lot, meaning there's not a large frontage for the property. It does have a secondary position, but there is an easement that goes out, an ingress-egress easement that goes out to the front of the strip. On his plat, there's also an area dedicated for a monument sign, so whatever does get built in the back can have signage on Bandera. There's a plat in there so you can kind of see the layout. I know there is a cave on the site and some drainage, but that's removed from the overall 6.7 acres. That's part of the entire site plan. So basically, I think, as we kind of briefly mentioned, the EDC's never considered anything like this before. We wanted to bring the idea up since the broker approached the EDC about purchasing the site. I know he previously had it on the market for $2.4 million without any takers. His last, and I believe I actually forgot to print it out, his last email to me was 1.2 or best offer.
On this item, I'm not opposed necessarily to this item, or at least the discussion of it. I think that this property has a lot of potential for the city of Helotes. Unfortunately, a lot of the potential could have some issues when we're looking at the abutting neighborhood behind it, which is Cedar Springs. The city for some time has been going after a hotel developer, since we have a hot.
That's what I would put there.
Huh?
Yeah, that's what I would put there.
And many times they're asking for land as an incentive. A lot of cities provide incentives in land to hotels, particularly if the city is wanting them to have some sort of convention or visitor center facility, which is something else that we've looked at having. I can tell you that my concern there is that if we're going to pursue that or pursue this, that we're going to get considerable pushback from Cedar Springs, given the fact that it's right next, they would be behind an existing hotel. That's just something I've always been concerned about with this site. The other thing that's concerning about this site is the only one who legitimately can develop this site going forward would be the EDC or the city council or the city. And the reason for that is because the developer used all of its tree mitigation on the front parcels that were developed and pushed it all on the back parcel. So basically, all of his tree preservation is in the rear, and there's no way to cut a building out that isn't going to take down additional trees. And so when I say that the only one that can legitimately develop this site would be the city, or the EDC, is because we don't have to follow our own ordinances. I'm not saying that makes it right, but that is indeed the case here. Now, the other option would be if a developer came forward, they would have to go before city council to get a variance to the approved tree preservation plan for that site, okay? That there is another option for that. I'm not sure whether council would approve that or not. There's other opportunities for this site, office complexes, small business parks, things of that sort. And, you know, the reduction in price at this point was 50% off the reduction in price. I do believe that the price, as Glenn quoted, could be negotiated down even more so, given the fact that it's undevelopable at this point because all the trees are back there. I'm not sure how low this gentleman would go on that.
Are there little spiders also?
There is a cave on that site. That cave has already been protected through TCEQ. It's already been platted out of the property. So there are no development issues on that site that have not already been addressed and taken care of.
I saw it. I saw it.
Is that the area that's shown kind of like a bottle looking, a jug-looking thing?
Yes,
I'm sorry, say again?
this right here.
Is this the area that shaped like a, I don't know, a bottle is the best way?
The
to
ice
me?
cream cone, the upside ice
Yeah,
cream
yeah,
cone?
exactly.
That is the cave area, and it has been capped. And it's, so and that's been vetted through the state, so that is,
Okay.
it's legit.
Is the only, I'm sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
No, that's it.
Is
That's
the only ingress egress through the two strip centers there? That's how you,
Yes, that is the main entrance point to, would be the main entrance point to that site.
wow.
There could always be an agreement with the adjacent property, though, to get a rear ingress egress. The other 3 properties going towards Hausman Road have that.
But there's no other ingress egress that I see, and that would be a lot of traffic if you put an office building or an hotel, office warehouse complex. That would be a lot of traffic going down there through that easement, and it just doesn't look like enough room to be a practical piece of property to me for development.
And doesn't it have a
depends on what they put
retention,
there.
Wait, let's get to one person at a time.
doesn't it also have a retention pond on it?
It does have a retention pond that would, that facilitates the entire tract. That detention pond was created for all the different parcels that are within that boundary area.
That would really pose a problem.
So an additional drainage reservoirs is not necessary.
That is correct.
It's all covered already. Correct.
Matt?
I got a question for staff. So I'm the Cedar Springs HOA Board President. Is there conflict of interest in this?
No, I don't think there's
we
a
have a
conflict.
conflict of
I
interest.
don't think there's a
Okay.
conflict of interest. I mean, you're a citizen, so you certainly can speak on this item.
Okay.
You'll hear about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to get, straight to the, cut to the chase, in terms of expediency on this discussion, yeah, egress out of the neighborhood won't fly. But, your idea that, the EDC or city, from your perspective, and correct me if I'm quoting you incorrectly, is that we're probably the best candidates to develop that property because of where it is in the tree preservation at this point. And so, following that line of thought, it seems like since we have the trees back there, did you war game that out in terms of when you thought about, we're probably the best people to develop that site because it's really not developable by, anybody out there? Did you have any other ideas as like maybe, green space, something like, anything like that just to, keep the ideas rolling in my head?
My job is not to, well, what I see as my job is not to develop green space, but to develop the highest and best use of that property. And the highest and best use of that property is not a park, and
Yeah.
it's not going to generate any money for the city. So that would not be a thought
Okay.
in my head, to be honest with you.
All right, so then, when you were thinking about EDC and city development, what could we put there to get back any investment we put into that space?
That's the $1,000,000 question.
Yeah.
Well, there's a variety of businesses. It's zone
B3 overlay.
B3 overlay. So there's a variety of businesses that can fall into that category that can be put back there.
So maybe like mixed use or maybe a visitor center or something like that? Is that even an option?
Oh, no.
Yeah, mixed use and all of that, of course, is an option within B3 overlay. You see what's in that general area, what's in B3 overlay now. It's retail, restaurants, strip centers with whatever in them. So it's veterinary clinics, all of that kind of stuff. My thought here is, again, it's going to be difficult to get a hotelier into this community that's going to build a convention or a visitor center or something, or a convention type facility or meeting space facility without giving them some sort of incentive. That's going to be in my opinion, that's a bottom line. We're gonna have to incentivize it somehow because they're outside 1604. Well, if you look right now, all the hotels are on 1604. And that's purposeful because of traffic volume. Now, we are increasing the size, or TxDOT's increasing the size of Houseman. There's gonna be a lot more traffic that comes up that way than currently does. So, I mean, these things are developing over time, but, my focus has been on trying to get corporate headquarters here and getting a hotel here. That is what I personally have been focused on, in addition to filling in with retailers and restaurants and that sort. So when I look at this property, it's almost 7 acres. I mean, there's a lot of developable land there that could be like a hotel. But, you know, you have to take the, I'm not the one that can cut the check, basically. I need to know whether y'all would be interested in something like that, and then we can start the process of seeing what financing would be available, how much we should negotiate with the or with the developer, all of those sorts of things.
How long has his property been on the market for?
At least a year, correct?
And
And
no
he hasn't
bites?
sold it yet.
No.
It's not gonna,
Yeah,
gonna-
at least a year.
Can we actually finance this, or do we have to go out for a C of O for the money?
I have a question to bond counsel right now. I was hoping to get that information before this meeting.
I'm
so
not
that
sure we can legally do that.
Well, I have a question to them whether you can finance this through a regular financial institution or whether you would have to go out for certificates of obligation to finance this project. And I also don't have the payments that we would have to make for that dollar amount at this point. Again, I was
always
hoping to
sell
get
it
it,
to
but I haven't
Mega.
received it yet.
We need to look at our overall C of O, or overall bond indebtedness too, and there's lots of issues. I don't personally see the city, or the city, it's another story, the EDC as buying real property and trying to develop it. We could, if we buy it, we could end up stuck with payment on that and give that as an incentive to
we're just
developers
taking
and
his-
making that payment for 20 years.
We're just alleviating him of his problem.
yeah, I just don't think that's a wise
I mean,
idea.
that's certainly a valid point. I don't have an argument against that. The thought is if we start collecting properties, we can then attract the developments that the city and the EDC are looking for on those particular tracks. If y'all don't want to be in the business of land ownership, then we won't pursue it.
Let's,
Well, the other concern, I think, is also the fact that it's near a development, so the pushback on that.
I mean, the residential.
Yeah.
let's go around the room and see if we can get a consensus. Matt?
I'll trust you that, you know, you guys don't see a conflict of interest, but outside of keeping the.
There's a conflict
yeah,
of interest as
okay.
long as we're having a discussion on it. We're not even taking
We're
any
not
action
voting,
on this.
not
Okay.
taking any action.
So you just want me to offer opinions on what I'm thinking about this, or I mean, because
Now, whether we should even consider this or not is a consensus we're trying to get. Or
okay.
consider buying property and being involved in the development of it.
Yeah, so to that specific question, you know, I would say if we had a more clarity as to what the EDC's intent would be if we purchased this and let's say had to hold on to it for 5 years, what is our options in terms of soliciting vendors, developers to get out there and put something in that's palatable to the community adjacent to this property, and that fits our goals, then if it falls in line with that, you know, that's something here and in the future I would be for. You know, if we're going to start collecting properties like that, like you said, so that way we can be a little bit more targeted and I guess not rely on the brokers to go shop property for us. So yeah, under that logic, I'm interested in it, but right now, a hotel, no.
Bill?
I'm interested in pursuing it further. Only question I have, would it be susceptible to division or sell-off of certain portions within that piece of property? We would still have the rights to subdivide it, you might say?
You would have, yeah, the EDC would have every right as a property, that anybody else does as a property owner.
I'm for going ahead, forward with it.
Stevie?
Well, I'm against it, mainly because it doesn't have road frontage. And this is a very, very aggressive realtor that has been handling the property. And I can assure you, he has proposed to all types of developers. And obviously, he can't interest anyone.
Alan?
I'm not adverse to the EDC buying and developing properties, but I'm very much against this particular piece of property.
Kathy?
It's not a good idea, but if we did buy it, let's just have a llama farm on it. We can buy and sell llamas, you know, I just don't know what else we could do with it.
Alan?
I'd just be curious as to what is the lowest price that he'd be willing to sell it for?
Well, those types of discussions we would have to handle in executive session when we were actually negotiating the price on this. So I don't have an answer on that.
I'm not saying yes or no, but I'd be curious as to what that, we need time to chew on it.
We basically don't have a consensus.
No.
Well, if you don't have a consensus, that is the consensus. So
That
we
is
will
the-
not, we won't pursue it at this point.
Okay, the only thing we have left on the agenda is the staff reports, staff updates, item 12.
You don't have.
I'm going to pass around some kind of backup documents. If you need an extra one, let me know. So let me go ahead and just kind of address the letter. That's on the blue letterhead, the single sheet of paper. That one is from Bird's Eye View. I received that this morning. I know there's been concern both from the board and from staff about the lack of progression in the map, and then the fact that we do not still have an executed contract. And I know there's been a variety of issues with it and excuses, the way I would put it. So I just point blank told the owner, Sarah, that we needed a definitive answer before my meeting tonight, whether or not she intends to sign the contract and what her time frame is. She told me that she had 3 other attorneys review the contract. She did not feel comfortable signing it. She felt it gave too much design control to the board of directors, and she was not willing to take that risk because the design of the map is her most expensive component. So she sent me, I just told her it would be nice if we got a letter officially, I guess, stating that she is not going to pursue signing the contract nor requesting the funds from the EDC.
But it does, I can't tell from her letter here, does she want to pursue the project on her own?
So I did ask her, she will pursue the project when, right now she's focused on Terlingua and revising Bernie. So as soon as those are complete, then she still has interest in doing a map in Helotes, asked if I could still help her identify the business and roads and all that. I told her I didn't see an issue with that. I think her time frame is probably more like June, July before she gets started. So now, if there's not any other questions on that particular item, I'll go through the rest of the staff report. So some of the items that's been complete since our last meeting, I know I mentioned that we're doing the Fiesta Medal giveaway. It's our second year of doing it. And that's with the first page is showing you some of the locations we've been to, and then the last one on there is our next event at Bandera Road Cafe. They've recently reopened at a new location, so I know Bendare Road was excited that we could come out and give them a little extra exposure. Panthers Cafe was one of the best attended events. He was full, had no tables available inside or out for 2 hours while we were there. And he was really ecstatic that it went over so well. And just seeing the support, from the EDC, that we do care about the success, of our businesses, and it's just an added promotion. The second page is an ad I did for the City of Helotes magazine and for the Independence Day celebration. I think I still printed the wrong one. It changed slightly from that. The next one would be events that I've attended since our last meeting. One of them is the morning mingle the chamber hosts, and then they did an event, Fiesta Metal related, the Fiesta Metal Bash, where the city EDC and 98 other vendors selling Fiesta metals or merchandise. That event brought in over 429 people to the area. And I was at Pedrati's, so it was slightly outside of Helotes. It was the only venue that could sustain that. They're looking at other options for next year. Do you want to handle the VIA?
Yes, included on your dais for the Municipal Development District is an email from Bonnie Prosser with VIA. You can see that she finally responded to one of our email correspondence, and basically she said VIA didn't answer the question with a no, that we can't have an election to recall the MDD tax within our ETJ, but what she was very vague on is how to do it, and I understand purposely so. And so Frank Garza, again, is our attorney on this, and we will be reaching out to Frank, although he'll probably recuse himself, because I told you all at the last meeting, I believe, he's also outside counsel for VIA. So we'll need to figure out and get some further direction from an attorney on how to proceed with this issue. But it's very clear from her email that, yes, an election can be called. The real question is by whom? Who calls the election? Whether it has to be the city of San Antonio, Bexar County, VIA, I don't know. And so that's what we're working on right now, trying to figure that out. Are there any questions on that?
Keep plugging.
After that, a quick update on our improvements to the EDC website. I know GIS planning, I just sent Rick this afternoon a link to kind of what it looks like, the interface for the properties and the community analytics. Right now, we have a question out to ESD and Associates. That's our contractor for our website maintenance and some of our marketing as well, to figure out what's the best way to add this to the website. We have a couple of options, whether or not we're creating a unique URL, using their URL to redirect, or embedding it into our website. I want to make sure we get the best exposure for the new application.
What's the timeframe on that? Is there a complete implementation?
It's in our park right now. GIS is ready to go live. So as soon as I get an answer from ESD, which they're hoping to either meet tomorrow or the first part of next week, and then once we get an answer of how it's going to be done, then we can actually make the changes to the site. The embed would take slightly longer on ESD's part. The URL redirect is simple. And then Neon Cloud, I did not include any background documents. We have identified a date. They're coming out May 3rd and 4th to do filming in Helotes. Majority of it will be aerial through a drone, but some of it is on the ground. We've identified all the sites and events as well. So they're going to be filming for the commercial side and then also for the tourism side. And I don't have anything new from Manhart at this point. No additional land use planning. do you want to do the water or sewer?
Yes, I just received word on the water and sewer utility project. It is obviously completed. SAWS will be meeting here tomorrow at 2 o'clock to visit with the inspectors and the engineers and all of that to finalize the project. And at that point, we will be able, so hopefully next week, I'll be able to submit the request for the impact fee credits and the pro rata refunds. So hopefully by the end of next week, we'll be done with this project and everything will be submitted to SAWS, and we'll just wait for our reimbursements.
I don't have any update on the Helotes Visitor Center, but I do on the current and proposed commercial developments. In the packet, the first project has already, their conceptual design has already gone to Planning and Zoning and City Council. I believe right now they're going to have to work on platting the property, which usually takes a couple of months. Mentioned last time, there hasn't been any update. I know there is some rumors on Nextdoor on what's going in at the corner of Scenic Loop and Bandera Road. Believe it's close to 4.5 acre site. As soon as something is officially submitted to either the EDC or the city, we can have a discussion. My understanding, it's allowed by zone, by the zoning district, but it is under contract. The next one would be located near Jupi Mills, and that one is owned by Stan Goodson. He is in the process of contracting with an architect. He's kind of going to 3 different ones to see which one is a good fit for him, and then he'll be working on some different designs. Like I mentioned, what's in here is like SimCity. They just threw some stuff down. It is not what any future development's going to look like. And then there's a approximately 2 acre site, kind of up on the hill on the right-hand side. I know you see the office building, that's kind of a red brick that's set back from the road. It's just north of that on Bandera. Right across from it used to be Adonai Air Supply and then Longhorn Piping. I know Patricia Broyles is partnered with DH Realty to market that on the commercial side. And DH Realty is even looking at the site as a speculative office development. Now on the Dr. Bitter site, I've had multiple meetings over the last 3 weeks with developers interested in that site. Most of them, it's because of the road improvements on Hausman Road. They see that as just a huge advantage, getting traffic in and out of the area. And it's also the last large piece of property in the commercial corridor. Some developers would love to just buy it. Some are willing to partner. They're all trying to reach him. I'm trying to reach him to see if we can arrange a meeting. He's been non-responsive again. So as soon as I get more information, I'll definitely pass it along. I do know he has some health issues right now. The adjacent corner at Hausman and Bandera, that's 2.5 acres next to the Compass Bank, that site has gone under contract. I know they submitted some conceptual plans to the city, but they were incomplete submittal, so they've been asked to fix all the issues and to resubmit, and that has not been done at this time. And the Development Services is in contact with them. The Abizo Helotes Crossing, that one they're going through their stormwater management and detention. They're trying to do a fee in lieu of, and right now I believe it's our city engineer said that they haven't supplied sufficient data to show that they can qualify. So he's asking for more engineering work.
They have today, they submitted everything, so we should be good on that site.
Okay, awesome. And that's 9,300 square feet, and there's only about 3,000 that's still left unleased. Just got permission to say who this is. So Bad Dogs Beer and Bites went out of business. And the site was actually under contract before they officially closed their door. So Shots Meat Market is going to be taking over that lease space. And I think that's a, Shots Meat Market, I think it's a great addition for the area. I have a pretty high volume business, although as me and Pat talked, most of it's not taxable, but there is a part of it that is on all the processed stuff that they sell. And that concludes the current and proposed commercial development. Any questions?
Okay, if there are no more questions, the meeting's adjourned at 9:05.